we really screwed ourselves because we overlooked this and compared it to other stuff, right? And the comparison game doesn't stop there. Let's talk about the economy. As some of you guys know in my groups, I've been talking to you about some stock moves I made. I made a little bit of money in this coronavirus thing, whatever, right? Now, the comparison game continues here. People love to look at this stock market crash and say, we've already been there. This has already happened. Every time there's been a crash, this has happened. People say, well, we were overdue for a recession. It's been 12 years since the last recession. Of course this was going to happen, and the market's just going to bounce right back like it has always done. Historically, I need you to understand, we live in a new world, a world that has never existed, literally. I want to give you some perspective for this. Well, we're overdue. The last recession was 12 years ago. 12 years ago, YouTube was 3 years old. Facebook was 4 years old, and most of you weren't on it. Instagram didn't exist. Virtually nobody had streaming services in their home. You weren't listening to the Clovis audio experience on Amazon Alexa flash briefing every morning while you brewed your coffee. We now have over 750,000 podcasts to choose from. The exponential growth of information sharing that has happened in the last 12 years is absolutely staggering. You can't even calculate it. It's impossible how the world has changed in the last 12 years. I'll give you an example. In the most famous crashes of all time, from Black Monday in '87 to the recession in 2008, the great global financial crises that have happened, in all these most famous crashes, when we talk about the stock market, the vast majority of people trading stocks were professionals and funds. Big giant hedge funds and Wall Street professionals that lived on Wall Street and eat, sleep, and breathe this boiler room style, right? In 2020, any 18-year-old with a bank account can trade Tesla stocks in their underwear from the comfort of their futon bed. We have never lived in this world before, everybody. Historic things that happen don't matter right now. The exponential spread of information means that we are at the mercy of the masses. 12 years ago, your grandmother was not sharing fake news, clickbait articles on your Facebook wall. That wasn't happening 12 years ago. It is happening now. The 90-year-old grandmas are reading all the clickbait, okay? So we are at the mercy of the masses. Let's just say, hypothetically, coronavirus was absolutely nothing to worry about, right? Personally, that's how I feel, because I believe I'm at zero risk of contracting this thing thanks to robust health. But that doesn't mean that I am not also at the mercy of the masses, okay? My investments, my company, my travel plans, my quality of life, I am still at the mercy of the masses and how they react to this thing. It doesn't mean how I feel about it personally. It doesn't matter how I feel about it personally, okay? So the same way we can sit there and say, sure, the stock market crashed. Well, we were overdue for a recession. It's been 12 years. That doesn't make this 65-year-old who just retired in 2019 and just watched 30% of their retirement evaporate overnight. Saying we were overdue for a recession doesn't change the way they feel about it, doesn't change their reality. You see what I'm saying? We are still at the mercy of the masses. That's just the way this works with a global population that's connected to each other 24/7. So is it fair that the economy and our social lives might come to a screeching halt? No, not at all. It pisses me off. It's quite inconvenient. I have a luxury cruise in Europe booked for June, right? Probably not going to happen. It's not fair, and there's nothing you can do about it now. But here's where I'm going to get into this shit deeply, and empathetic Justin is kind of going to go out the window here, okay? But you could have spent your life preparing. There's not much you can do about it now. In countless previous episodes, I have tried to tell people just how dramatically the world is changing at breakneck speeds. But everyone lives directly in the past and says, but in the past, the market has always done this. In the past, this has always happened. In the past, there was no YouTube, there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook. None of this shit existed. We don't know, okay? The past tells us nothing about today, which is why in the last 2 years, I have introduced you to books like Disrupt You, detailing how every single job in America is eventually going to be disrupted by technology. I told you to go out and gather as many skills as you can to make yourself what I call recession proof. I've told you that in 2019 and 2020, every human being with internet access should at least have some skills to allow them to work from home. And here we are with literally every expert on the planet telling us to avoid crowds, stay home, avoid unnecessary travel. Entire corporations like Google and Facebook are telling all of their employees to work from home. Massive events being canceled all around the globe. South by Southwest was just canceled. New York just instated quarantine containment zones. Entire countries have large populations of have large percentages of their population quarantined, basically on house arrest. Sure, the current circumstance is far different than your job being disrupted by technology, or is it? This is technological disruption. It is the spread of information that has caused this global panic. I want to repeat that. It is the spread of information that has caused this global panic. The concept that I teach you of making yourself recession-proof doesn't care how the recession happens. Again, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of treatment, okay? I am recession-proof. It impacts me virtually zero if I get quarantined in my house. I love this house, right? It just means that I have to turn down the dial on some of my income streams, live musical performances and my Airbnb rental, and I need to turn up the dial on my other streams of income, some of my passive investments and all things digital entrepreneurship. I got options, everybody. If you're not currently recession-proof, this better be your wake-up call. Stop being lazy and start learning new skills, period, okay? Again, the global economy doesn't give a shit what you think is fair. Now, while we're on the topic of money, one thing I want to touch on that really pisses me off that nobody's talking about. I've now listened to a lot of experts talking about this, and I've read a ton of articles and blah, 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 blah. There is a common theme that everyone's talking about: funding for prevention and pandemic relief.